So the other day I was sitting on the toilet taking a poop, as I do, and when I was as I was pushing the poop through my butthole, as it was just about to come out, my butt made the cutest little noise, the most adorable little squeak. It sounded like a child waking up in the morning, kind of like Cindy Lou Who from The Grinch. I swear I was just pushing, and all of a sudden I just heard. It was adorable. Hi. Welcome to another episode of Deep Thoughts. This is a reshoot, a retake. I tried to do this just a couple nights ago. And wouldn't you know that it was interrupted by a certain somebody. So, but no, I'm ready for the fall though. Baby girl's awake at 1 in the morning. Man, there's just never a good time, is there? Dad? I don't know how much it's getting picked up on the mic, but I might have to end this short. Be right back. Amicia, you. Yeah. Hopefully she's occupied enough right now to where I can do this and not be interrupted too much. Excuse any, baby music in the background, any baby sharks and old McDonald's and head, shoulders, knees, toes. Please excuse any of that. Hope everyone's doing well today. It's a beautiful day today, as opposed to the 2 or almost 2 in the morning that I was recording this last time on a dreary, rainy night, which sets its own vibes too. But on this September 12th, 2020, in the year of our Lord, it's a gorgeous day this evening. And, hope everyone's doing okay in life. That's all I can say. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. Love y'all out there. To anybody who's listening or watching, at this point, I really do this for me. I really do. It's fun, and it just helps me. I don't know. Who doesn't like just talking about the things that they want to talk about? I just feel like I don't know too many, or I only know so many people that really like to talk about all the things that I like to talk about. So I might as well just talk to myself about it, and that's what I really like to do here. Today, the topic it's kind of like a spur of the moment kind of deal. I've been working on another topic, which hopefully will be my next episode if it's ready in time, but I've been working on it for a few weeks because I really want it to be on point. I really want it to be some good stuff. I have a hard time balancing what I want out of this, whatever you call it, podcast. Do I want it to be informational? Do I want it to be well researched? Do I want to show information? Do I just want to just talk the whole time? How much do I want to edit? Do I just want it to just fly off the top of my head? I don't really know what gets the best quality content. Probably, especially if I'm talking about a specific topic, I'm sure most people would like to hear some good research. So, I do want to keep that in mind. But also at the same time, I've said it once and I'll say it again. I don't want to make these things a homework assignment. I'm done with school for now. And I don't miss it. I don't like restrictions and formulas and oh, you're supposed to do things this way. So at the end of the day, I want to do it my way. And I want to talk about whatever I want to talk about, regardless of what anybody thinks. Okay? And so I will. Today, we are talking about Charles Manson. More specifically, Helter Skelter, or the Helter Skelter scenario. Now, this was kind of like a spur-of-the-moment thing because it kind of had me relating things to it, that are happening today. Not to delve too deep into current events, but it does. There are some related things to it, as we'll get into. So this was something that I think I really heard about it maybe for the first time like a year ago and read a little bit about it for the first time. I'd always heard about Charles Manson and who hasn't, and kind of just the vague basic narrative of what happened with the Manson murders and who he was. And, so I knew kind of like the basic thing. Guy in the 60s, brainwashing hippies and murders, had his followers or his family murder people. Including one pregnant actress, Sharon Tate. But I really haven't delved deep ever into Charles Manson, ever before. So that's pretty much the extent of my knowledge over it. And it's still something I really should dive deeper into because, like everything, at least of my belief, it is my belief now that mostly every major event or story that we've been told about or taught about or that has been portrayed in media in some way, in books or movies or TV, I feel like there's always a little more something to the story. Maybe there's a little more to the narrative or a different narrative. And so with Charles Manson, I feel like that's not excluded. I feel like there's probably more to the basic narrative than what I know of it. I just haven't dived deep into it. But learning about Helter Skelter did introduce me to a new part of it that I had no idea. So what is Helter Skelter? First of all, Helter Skelter, they're cool words, right? I don't know, they're kind of creepy words. If you've heard the words Helter Skelter, you probably have heard them from the Beatles song, which I think is where I've heard it from. But when I actually looked up the Beatles song again and listened to it, I did not recall it. In fact, it sounded so vastly different than any Beatles song I've ever heard. I couldn't believe it was like the Beatles. Helter Skelter was a song by the Beatles about a roller coaster in England called Helter Skelter. And it was like their version of like a heavy rock song or something. You got like Paul McCartney doing the whole yeah, doing the whole like rock and roll screaming thing. I had never to my knowledge, I'd heard that song before, so it's some different Beatles music for sure. It's a good song though. It is good. If you haven't heard it, check it out. But that's probably where you've heard the words from, and that does have to play a pretty key role in this whole Charles Manson thing. Helter Skelter also, by definition, I guess, which I think it is like an English term, it's like to be in confusion or turmoil. So, yeah. But what is the Helter Skelter scenario? And why is it even called that? So apparently the story goes, you have the Beatles, real big in the 60s, obviously, blowing up. And you also have a lot of just crazy social, political things going on You have the civil rights movement going on, JFK assassination, communism, all this stuff, right? And but the Beatles were like the biggest thing ever back then, and they came out I think in 1964. If I want to trick myself here, was it like when was the White Album? 1968 was the White Album. So the Beatles released the White Album is what it's called. It's just a Beatles album that says the Beatles on it. It's all white. It's got a lot of popular songs on there, including Helter Skelter. So apparently, okay, and if you don't know what's going on with Charles Manson and stuff like that, Charles Manson was going around, I guess, recruiting people. You know, I had to like kind of look into it a little bit. Like, how did people even meet like Charles Manson? And I can't remember. There's one story about one of his youngest family members or whatever met him at some camp or something, or on some bus or something. I don't know. Hippies, I guess, in the 60s in California and stuff like that were just, traveling all around, just hitching rides from strangers, meeting other fellow hippies and, engaging in hippie activities together, So it probably wasn't hard to meet random strangers during that time. So, like this little summary says, how the Manson family started. Charles found a girlfriend in 1967. He met Mary Brunner, a college-educated library worker near Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco, and moved into her apartment. She was taken by the way he seemed to offer an alternative to her everyday mainstream life. So, Charles Manson, I guess, had a way of convincing people, especially these girls, I guess of probably like alternative ways of thinking and living, and there probably was some drugs involved, and that may have played a role in these girls, believing the things he was saying, or just following him or being captivated by him or inspired by him. This woman, Diane Lake, she was the one, I guess, like one of the youngest members of the Manson family. She said, some of the girls were choir girls, honor students, junior college dropouts, homecoming queens, that all kind of fell under the quote-unquote spell of Charles Manson. Which, if you just look, I mean, you could find countless of hilarious interviews and things of Charles Manson and get an idea, I guess, of kind of how he was up there, upstairs.
I make the laws from here. This is me.
But, like I said, I feel like there's always more to it. People, they pass off Charles Manson. Even, like I said, I've never even looked into it, but I've always had this understanding, and I've seen some interviews with him, like I said, that just made him seem so laughably crazy. But, for somebody to convince some girls to kill some people, was he a little bit intelligent? Maybe. A lot of crazy people are smart. Not condoning anything he did. He was a horrible person. I'm just saying. He gets a rap as a goofy goofball, in my sense, in my that I've seen. Yeah, but apparently he was able to cast some spell on these girls, and I don't know. Some people were just like I said, just living in trucks and vans and just hitting the road and things like that. So anyway. So Charles Manson basically had this family of girls he was, convincing to follow him. And I know that seems like kind of like kind of vague, and I guess I never myself never understood what that meant. Like, what was Charles Manson saying to these girls, and what was he saying about life in the world that was, had them so hooked or convinced, that he was saying true things. Well, then you run into this Helter Skelter thing, and supposedly, according to these girls, Charles Manson is, listening to the White Album from the Beatles. He became like obsessed with it. He was listening to like the songs over and over and over again, and especially Helter Skelter. And what was going through Charles Manson's brain, apparently, is that he felt like the Beatles were trying to send a message about an apocalypse coming. An apocalyptic race war, to be exact. Right? I just never knew that. So obviously the civil rights movement's going on, and racial, and there's TV too. TV, when the introduction of TV came around, and newspapers, but definitely TV, came around, especially during like, the presidential election, how it was actually televised, the first one with Kennedy and Nixon, and just how important of a role that played for people to see their candidates give speeches like that on TV. And it was also played an important role on seeing the things that were going on in the streets with the chaos during the civil rights movement, how the cops were treating people, and all the chaos, all the mess, and things that were going on, and just had people probably captivated and scared about what was going on. It wouldn't be too hard if it's framed correctly. If you're watching things play out in front of you on TV, seeing the things that you were seeing back then with white and black people, it maybe is not so hard to believe that people thought there was going to be some kind of catastrophic climax to it all, and end up in a race war with whites versus blacks. Now, we'll get into this in a little bit, if that's even like a possible thing. And that's how I kind of want to spin things into what's happening today. But first, let's get through some more of this Helter Skelter. So, he felt like certain lyrics in the songs were talking about preparing, basically, for this race war. Lyrics in songs such as "I Will," lyrics like "and when at last," I'm not gonna sing these, I'm sorry. And when at last I find you, your song will fill the air. Sing it loud so I can hear you. Make it easy to be near you. A lyric like that, Charles Manson apparently would interpret into the Beatles are looking for Jesus Christ. I mean, I can kind of see it, I guess. Songs like "Don't Pass Me By," there was like lyrics of "I listen for your footsteps coming up the drive, listen for your footsteps, but they don't arrive. I'm waiting for you to knock dear," things like that, yada yada. Again, he was interpreting that as the Beatles talking about, bringing in Jesus or calling for Jesus. "Sexy Sadie," "Rocky Raccoon," "Happiness is a Warm Gun." Rocky Raccoon specifically, he thought raccoon meant coon, which is a vulgar term for black people, especially back then. And also, I think a reference to the Bible, he thought. There's a reference, I think, in the songs that mentions a Bible in that song. Yeah, something about there's a lyric that says like So one day, Rocky Raccoon walked into town, booked himself a room in the local saloon. Rocky Raccoon checked into his room only to find Gideon's Bible. Um, it says here that Manson made this connection in the period before his trial. He met some people that were going to write a Rolling Stones story about him. And they, he was talking about that song, I guess, and brought up, that he indeed was kind of connecting, that Charles Manson was connecting that song and raccoons to black people. Whereas you'll find, though, that's really like one of the only admissions I think that Charles Manson has to this whole thing. And we'll get into that in a minute, too. So let's see. Happiness is a warm gun. He thought it was the Beatles telling blacks to get guns and fight whites. So finally, Helter Skelter. So specifically, like lyrics about going, getting to the bottom and going back to the top of the slide. So also part of this scenario that Charles Manson believed. He believed that racial tensions would mount so high that black people would try to kill all white people, and white people and black people would fight in that way. But because of the white population being so much greater than the black population, he didn't think that the white people will just win. He figured that white people will inevitably turn on themselves, and it'll be like white people versus black people, or black people versus white people, versus white people, essentially resulting. Hi, cat. Resulting in black people winning and white people basically killing themselves off, and black people being the supreme race over this country. And Charles Manson and his, convinced his followers that what they were going to do during this was go into a pit in the desert, I think Death Valley. And this is where, in Helter Skelter, with the references to going back to the, I get to the bottom, I go back to the top of the slide, where I stop and turn and go for a ride, was a reference to the emergence from this bottomless pit. In Death Valley, where they were to arise after this race war to conquer the victorious black people. It's just so crazy. It might work. That's just so Charles Manson. Because he figured that they could win, but they couldn't govern themselves. And there would just be a people waiting to be controlled and governed. And that's where Manson comes in, to be king of all the black people. And this is what supposedly he believed in this Helter Skelter scenario that we're talking about today. I'm going to try not to be annoying when I take drinks anymore. So these are the things that he's, thinking as he's interpreting these lyrics and telling, his followers. And he connects things, like I said, to the Bible as well. Let's see. In the book of Revelation, chapter 7, verse 4, there's a verse about how I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144 and 4,000. Charles Manson, try to, connect that to how many followers that he might have or it might grow to. And that might also have been a result of a lot of procreation that might have been going on in that bottomless pit, Maybe he would have to get busy, to get to that number. What was it? 144,000. And let's see here. Chapter 9, verses 2 and 3. says that, and he opened the bottomless pit, and there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and upon them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. So supposedly he interpreted this to as the scorpions of the earth have power equals the power of Scorpion, that is Manson, a Scorpio, because he was a Scorpio, will prevail. Verses 7 and 8. And the locusts' faces were as the faces of men, and they had hair as the hair of women. And he thought this meant the Beatles, as they had long hair, and locusts, bugs, beetles. Let's see what else. Verse 17. And thus I saw the horses of the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire, and jacinth, and brimstone. And the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire, smoke, and brimstone. Breastplates. He thought breastplates of fire equaled the Beatles' electric guitars, and the fire and smoke and brimstone of their mouths equals the Beatles' powerful lyrics, the power of their music to ignite Helter Skelter. That's right, which is what we're talking about right now. So, I could go on and on about these, interpretations. There's quite a few of them. Even to like pointing out like the White Album was white, trying to, he thought the Beatles were trying to basically, ignite that race war. Basically he just thought the Beatles were just trying to tell it all and just trying to, like I said, throw out all these signs and symbols to start a race war. And so essentially that's pretty much the gist of it. So this is what Charles Manson was preparing for. And so when he had his followers go do these murders, he thought that that was also going to push things over the edge and start a race war. If he went and killed these, like, I don't even know, white people. I don't even know what was going through his head, because if he killed just like white people, why would that ignite a race war? You think he would have to have killed black people? But maybe he thought the murders of white people would be taken more seriously. And then I don't know, man. Maybe we can find that out here real quick. So, let me just read this. This is just from Wikipedia. Manson and his followers began preparing for Helter Skelter in the months before they committed the murders. They worked on songs for the hoped-for album, which they anticipated. That's right, because they were working on music as well. Charles Manson. Apparently, he wasn't a bad singer. They worked on songs for the hoped-for album, which they anticipated would set off everything, and they prepared vehicles and other items for their escape from the Los Angeles area, their home territory, to Death Valley when the days of violence arrived. They pored over maps to plot a route that would bypass highways and get them to the desert safely. Manson was convinced that the song Helter Skelter contained a coded statement on the route that they should follow. Manson had said that the war would start in the summer of 1969. He told a male family member in the late June of that year, months after he had been frustrated in his efforts to get the album made, that Helter Skelter was ready to happen. This is a quote from Charles Manson, supposedly. Blackie never did anything without Whitey showing him how, he said. It looks like we're going to have to show Blackie how to do it. So this was his mindset. Instead of waiting for black people to make the first move, he made the first move. Manson inducted his followers to carry out the first set of murders on August 8th, 2 days before my birthday, 1969. Now's the time for Helter Skelter. They committed the second set of murders the following night, August 9th to 10th, and one of the killers wrote Helter Skelter on the refrigerator in blood, along with other references to Beatles songs, particularly Piggies, which is also another song that he interpreted to mean, oh gosh, cops? Did he? Yeah. That the Piggies were the cops and blacks were going to give the Piggies, or the establishment, a good whacking. Which apparently was a phrase that Manson particularly liked. Again, I'm just reading from the Wikipedia here, which it does have its references. So yeah. So essentially, he, I guess, to start the race war, had his followers commit these murders. So what happened? They got caught pretty quick. They got the girls, and they were on to Charles Manson pretty quick as well. And one person that had a lot to do with this was a man named Vincent. Oh man, I'm gonna butcher this. Bugliosi Jr., who was an attorney. And this was like really early in his career. But I think he had already been known, pretty well known, before this, because he had just started a private practice. Let's see what it says here. Never mind. Anyways, so this guy Vincent Bugliosi, he was, I guess, assigned to this case, and I believe he was the one that knew that Charles Manson was like the guy behind all this, and so they eventually finally arrested him. So it says here, as a Los Angeles County Deputy District Attorney, Bugliosi came to national attention for prosecuting the 7 murders that took place August 9th through 10th, 1969, in which Sharon Tate, Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, and all these people that were killed by the Manson girls. He successfully prosecuted Charles Manson and the 3 girls, Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Leslie Van Houten, for the murders. And he was one who was credited especially with gaining conviction for Manson, who had not been directly involved in the murders. So this guy was the guy who was able to get Charles Manson convicted, even though he wasn't the one. Charles Manson wasn't even the one that did the murders, which is a pretty important point to that story, the Charles Manson murders and everything. My phone's dying. Hold on. Hopefully that's good. All right. Where was I? Okay, so yeah, this guy played a very important role. And then not only that, but he's the guy that, with Kurt Gentry, who was just an American writer, co-wrote with him the book called Helter Skelter, which talked about this scenario in the Charles Manson murders. So this guy was the prosecutor on the murders, was able to, I don't know, did such a good job prosecuting, I guess, and everything. Was able to, prosecute Charles Manson, who didn't even commit the murders, and then just, was the one also, of course, to discover the scenario. And because he discovered the scenario, he almost immediately published a book about it and set this narrative of Helter Skelter. Why do I say that out loud? Again, because of just the things I've seen and read and heard these days. I have to question everything. Every main narrative put out there to me. This guy, I'm not saying he was wrong or anything or did anything wrong. He obviously must have been very, very good at his job to be able to do all of this, especially, like I said, pretty early in his career. Yeah, I mean, he was just like a DA for like a couple years and then went on to his private practice, which is how he, or which right after the murders. He was just a DA, like right, like starting out, right? I want to like be clear of that. Yeah, 1964, and then all of a sudden, 4 years later, he's doing, prosecuting one of the most, just like televised and controversial crimes that happened in a very long time. It was, what a, I don't know, it's what a coincidence. He must have just been really good at his job, I guess. I don't know, to move on to that so fast, and then to be able to prosecute everything so perfectly. Sometimes things like that, I wonder, like, I don't know how, how much was he let in on all this? Like, I don't know. Like I said, either he did really good. Amicia, give that to me. Put that back. No. Like, he must have been really good at his job. That's all I'm saying. He was either really good at his job, or there was some fishy stuff going on, and that's why it's something I would like to look into more. But like I said, he got to set this whole narrative up, the Helter Skelter thing, and he got all the say so. Like, we can only trust his word, right? Because he's the one who prosecuted the whole cases, and I think he's the one that like pointed out, that there was Helter Skelter written on one of the windows. I don't know if there's any other, like, how many witness accounts of that there is. He set up the whole kind of narrative for it, of why Charles Manson committed the murders. And if I was to bring up also any evidence that, and it's not good evidence or anything, but any evidence that might support such a claim, that there was something fishy going on here, that maybe this was an entire setup, maybe by, I don't know, the FBI or the DA or somebody, in government or something, set this up and created the whole narrative to sell to the world in books and movies and documentaries and everything. Maybe it's just not exactly how it was told. But a piece of evidence I would bring up is that Charles Manson himself, denied the whole Helter Skelter thing. In fact, in his testimony in 1970, at the trial for the Tate LaBianca murders, on Helter Skelter, which was asked about in the courtroom, and he like spoke for a long time, I guess, because he's Charles Manson. I'm sure he just went rambling off. As for Helter Skelter, he said, it means confusion literally. It doesn't mean any war with anyone. It doesn't mean that some people are going to kill other people. Helter Skelter is confusion. Confusion is coming down around you fast. If you can't see the confusion coming down around you, you can call it what you wish. That's interesting. I don't know. Why wouldn't he just own up to it at that point, Why would he deny it? But not only that, but he brings up a more interesting point of the meaning of the song Helter Skelter, and of course the word. It means confusion, and it's coming down around us fast. What does that mean? Manson has dismissed the Helter Skelter conspiracy as an invention by the trial prosecutor, Vincent Bugliosi, and said it is a conspiracy that the music is telling the youth to rise up against the establishment because the establishment is rapidly destroying things. Is he was asking, is that a conspiracy? The music speaks to you every day, but you are too deaf, dumb, and blind to even listen to the music. It's not my conspiracy. It is not my music. I hear what it relates. It says rise. It says kill. Why blame it on me? I didn't write the music. As far as lining up someone for some kind of Helter Skelter trip, that's the district attorney's motive. That's the only thing he could find for a motive to throw up on top of all that confusion he had. There was no such thing in my mind as Helter Skelter. So, that's, one thing that I would bring up. Is that Charles Manson himself, which maybe he's not very reliable, based off of things we've seen, and heard him say and do. He doesn't seem all the way there. I can't remember if he pleaded insanity, didn't he? I can't remember. You know, he that's like a very sane thing to say, though. And he's talking about some very kind of true things. I feel like more related to nowadays with how music is and the things that it's saying is way more obvious. But back then, there were songs, saying things like what he's saying. There probably were examples of songs, especially in this counterculture movement of rising and possibly references to killing. I could see something like that happening today, where, well, even I remember during the the Columbine school shootings, they were quick to blame lyrics from people like Marilyn Manson, coincidentally, Manson. Does the light look really bright? Looks extra bright. I don't know. Maybe it's me. But they were quick to pull lyrics that he was saying that could, push somebody to go do some heinous crimes or murders. It wouldn't be hard to. And although I'm not one to think that, because you see it on TV or you do it in a video game or you hear it in a song, that therefore you should go do bad things, or that, influences people to do bad things. I'm not one that really buys into that, really. But it would not be hard to tie lots of songs today to messed up things that people are doing. So why would this, song be any different? Why would they pick the Beatles songs? Let's, for a second, say that Charles Manson was right, that he did not come up with this Helter Skelter stuff. It was made up by the prosecutor. Why would they try to blame the music? Why would they try to even come up with such a story and convince people that's what it was? Why would, would they specifically want to add that little tidbit of a race war? If that was never on Charles Manson's mind, is that something they would want to add to it just to add to this narrative that there could be a race war? That's what I wonder. That's just where my mind goes with these things. I like to think about those things because when I started reading the story, the first thing that jumped out to me was, oh, race war. That's crazy that Charles Manson, thought there was going to be a race war. But then it's like, okay, well, it kind of makes sense. That was during the Civil Rights Movement. But then I look at how things today are and I wonder just, again, with how TV works and everything, if you frame things a certain way, are you setting up a narrative that's not completely true? And then, like I said, for a crazy guy who I've seen say some bizarre out there stuff, and he's given some funny interviews. I'm telling you, look him up. It's gold. It's amazing to me that he, in front of everyone, has denied this conspiracy and denied that he was trying to start a race war. You think he would just admit to that and have no problem with admitting to that? I find it extremely believable that somebody... And if you look at this guy, Vincent Bugliosi, he seems like... I haven't looked into his work, but you look at all the things he's done. I mean, he's talked about every, and written about every, major thing, and, from, well, for one, he tried to run as a Democrat. That right off the bat kind of pushes me sideways a little bit. I don't know about that guy. For district attorney, in Los Angeles. But he, talked about, he criticized everyone, though. He criticized Bill Clinton. Well, I think he argued for Bill Clinton, actually. He argued that the right of a president to be free of a private lawsuit while in an office outweighed Paula Jones' interest in having her case brought to trial. in Clinton versus Jones. But he condemned like the Supreme Court's decision for having Bush, win the election over Al Gore, because that was like a controversial election back then in 2000. He did, though, and again, and this is where I look at him sideways. He tried to push down conspiracy theories. Oh, stop. Stop it. He's tried to push down like conspiracy theories about JFK, and tried to explain it more like, no, it was just, it's pretty much just straight by the books, that the Warren Report was pretty much exactly what happened. And so it's like a lot of untrustworthy things. Of course, he's a critic of Bush, but who wasn't? And then, of course, this guy, again, he's the one who prosecutes Manson. He's the one that comes up with the whole Helter Skelter thing, and he imprints it and puts it on paper in a book because that makes it true. I don't know. I'm skeptical of it. But the point of it is that, they were trying to, or Manson was trying to pinpoint that there was going to be this race war eventually. Now, with the goings-ons of today's and how racial tensions and things, since civil rights, how maybe some things have gotten better. Some may argue that in other aspects, some things have not gotten better or could get better. And that's true. But if you look at the media today and what's going on and how things are being framed, and there's talk of it, you would think that, that maybe people are pushing for a race war. Now, is that even possible? Could things boil over so much that people actually do that and actually go to war with each other, like in the streets, based off of their skin color? Now, what Charles Manson, was thinking about it, how, or at least allegedly, how it wouldn't be just blacks versus whites. There'd be a lot of whites on the black side. That, I feel like, if there would ever be a race war, that would definitely be true. That would have to be true. It wouldn't be just white people versus black people, but it would still be a race war. Because people would be fighting for what they believe is to either end racism or to better things for themselves. And the people that they would be fighting against are only people who oppose those ideas and don't want racism to end, I guess, and don't want things to get better for, minorities, specifically black people in this country. I just don't know if that could ever happen in this country. And things are looking extremely tense, no doubt. But I see so much more unity, especially when you just kind of push away the media and the things that are being shoved in front of you all the time on social media, and just in the news and in the headlines and YouTube's got their whole news section, that's just filled with juicy headlines from NBC, CBS, CNN, Fox News. And if it's not about coronavirus and a pandemic and an illness or a virus that, quote unquote, virus that could potentially kill off millions and millions of people, and that, if it's not that they're showing us, it's kind of like we're framing just nothing but racial stuff, racial tensions, and there might be people right now that think that there's going to be a race war, and that might scare a lot of people. What would kick off a race war? Would it be just continuously seeing black people killed by cops? Or just killed by white people in general? Is there a race war going on right now? I don't think so. I don't think so. And are there people that push for that or are wanting that in some way? Who would benefit from that? If there's racial tensions that are super high, does that set up for possibly a candidate to come in and be like, don't worry, everybody. I'll fix all the problems. I'll fix all the racist problems and all the racial things. How many times have we heard that? You know, oh, don't worry. I'll make sure all cops are prosecuted accordingly and are all held accountable for all these murders and the black people that they murder. Just vote for me. You know, I read something that it's been every 4 years, well, since Black Lives Matter started, every 4 years a significant video goes viral or something, or a story hits, or multiple stories start to hit of black people being killed by white people or cops. I saw something that showed that Black Lives Matter or BLM wasn't even like Googled at all the last 2 years, 2018 or 2019, since like 2016. You know, you got Trayvon Martin around 2011, 2012, when Barack Obama was running for re-election. And around 2015, right? Or 2014, 2015, Mike Brown, when Hillary was running for president. Which candidates are constantly talking about fixing racial problems? Which candidates have promised the most to minorities and helping them? Which candidates use race and racial tensions to make them seem as though they are going to be some savior to it, or try to use it for their benefit for votes? Look at the people who do that and talk about it. I bet you they share a lot of things in common. And I'm young, and I have the most that I have to go based off of is the earliest thing that I can really remember is Mike Brown and Ferguson. And I was upset about that stuff. Let me tell you, I was very upset about that stuff. I took that stuff serious. I totally was like, yeah, of course people are going to tear up Ferguson and St. Louis, you know, like, people are fed up. People are sick of this. And now 6 years later, I'm realizing, oh, it keeps happening. It keeps happening. During elections, it keeps happening. Same with viruses. Happens around election time. How many racial things and events are being framed or pushed on us on purpose to possibly ignite a race war? Folks, this is what I've always said. Excuse me. At this point in time, it's not about what I believe. I'm worried about what other people believe. I'm worried about what people with lots and lots and lots of power and influence believe. If a bunch of rich, wealthy leaders and politicians think that they can ignite racial tension so far that it ignites into some sort of civil war, and they can use that to divide and conquer us, if that's what they believe in, that's what worries me. I don't care what's true or if it can happen, because if they're going to expend their money and resources and power to do that, that's going to have an impact on everybody in some way. 1992, LA riots, Rodney King. What's changed? Since the civil rights, since that finally happened, what else has really changed? Or why are we still being told or shown or, experiencing, and if you're black or a minority, you're experiencing these things firsthand. Why is all that still going on? I don't know. Are things as bad as they seem? Some people would say yes, some people would say no. I'm a little undecided, but I do know when you aren't paying attention to all these things that the media is throwing in your face, it's pretty easy to be it's fairly easy to be happy-go-lucky. I don't see a lot of racial tensions in front of my eyes. But again, people could be actually experiencing things still. And I just, whatever the solution to that may be, if there is one, to fix this racism in this country, to get to the bottom of why cops keep getting away with murder, especially of black people. I think it will come and has to come through peace and unity. It will eventually come when people come together to fully discuss it. And the people, okay, not the politicians, but the people, when they finally realize what's been going on and why this has been going on, and when they can finally, together, get your target and finally go after those who you need to go after, that's what's going to come close to fixing these problems, I think. It's not going to be through war or destruction, violence, fighting, yelling, screaming, throwing things. It's not. And there's, there are a lot of people doing that, okay? There's plenty of evidence to show that, but there's a lot of people that aren't doing that either. But they're still trying to get their voices heard, and they do want change, and maybe they're out there peacefully protesting or just saying things on social media, expressing their feelings and such. And those are the people that we need to be listening to. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people, and some of them are being paid to do it, and it's very political. Some people are going the war route, and it's never going to work. It's never going to work, ever. If there were ever to be such a civil war or race war in this country right now, folks, I'm telling you, unless you trust your politicians that much to get in the middle of that, and, well, in the way that you think, to help in any way, you're so wrong. That's exactly what they would want. You know how easy it would be to conquer us when we're in a civil war fighting ourselves? You know what they could do? They could do anything. Anything. They would control us all. When we're not looking at them and we're fighting ourselves, we're not fighting the real enemies. We're not going after the real targets. Folks, you got to find out who the real targets are. If we want to get if we want to make any progress in this whole, race thing, this whole justice for all, it's going to come when we finally tune out those who are constantly poking us and prodding us, to get closer and closer to that tipping point when they have nothing invested in it. Stop listening to all the rich, famous celebrities. I don't care, white, black, Latino, Asian, whatever race they are out of touch with reality. Majority of them. Once they sign that big contract, and a lot of them are already from rich families, not all of them, but even if they're not, I don't care if you're rags to riches. When you hit riches and you get to that spot and you're near the top, I'm sorry, you're not in touch with us anymore. You don't get a say. Stop talking to us. Stop telling us how to feel. Okay? Stop listening to all the richies. Stop listening to the 1%. Okay? That's Hollywood. They are the 1%. Stop listening to them. They don't care. They have nothing invested in this. Nothing. They will always be okay at the end of the day. That's why they live in gated communities and they have walls around their houses. They will never be affected by a civil war. Okay, most of them have properties in Australia and New Zealand. They'll be outie while we're killing each other. Poor people killing each other. But that's okay, because I don't think that's going to happen. Once we the people come together and unite, then we can really solve this issue. We're not going to let any race wars happen, I hope. There's not going to be any Helter Skelter. All right? I think things are going to get better here. I do believe there should be justice for all. People deserve justice. And right now, the people need to be shown the justice. At some point, or like I said, the people are going to have to do something. We're going to have to do something. Right? And if you think that something is the election, I'd say you're wrong. Even though I feel there's such an obviously better candidate in this right now, if you think voting for one or the other is going to help you solve those issues, you're wrong. Because we live in a union of states. You need to be attacking the people in your states. And if you're in Missouri and these injustices are happening in Wisconsin and other places, there's not a whole lot you personally can do about it. Those people in that state need to hold their mayors and judges and district attorneys and governors responsible. Okay? For what their police force is doing, that is the state that is responsible. The president is not going to come in and save this issue, I don't think. But if you're going to vote for Joe Biden, then let the race wars begin. That's going to be an upcoming episode. Election, baby. Quick controversies coming back. Yeah. I think that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for this one. Hope it was a good one. I enjoyed it. There were minimal interruptions. Thank you, Amicia, for being so good. Thank you. About to treat this girl for being so good. I hope people learned a little bit something, This was all, like I said, new to me like a year ago. I know there's probably still lots of more information about it as I didn't do the deepest dive on it. But, it was a fun one to talk about. Helter Skelter. The race war that never was. This has been Deep Thoughts. I hope everyone is doing well. I wish everyone health, happiness, and safety. And just remember to keep thinking for yourselves, research for yourselves, think freely, think often. Love you guys. Until next time.